Buddy, and welcome to Thursday again. Here we are. We made it through another week. My name is Jamie Smith. I'm a state senator from District 15, a senator, and I'm the assistant minority leader. I got to get that right. It doesn't roll off the tongue like it could. But anyway, we're glad to be here today. We are busy, and the bills are dropping. In this building, it's not uncommon for things to maybe have a preconceived lifespan. I don't know how else to say it, but a bill near and dear to my heart was for the creation of land banks, and it died a quick death in committee today. But the thing I'm sad about with that bill dying is that it could have been used so well in something super exciting that's happening in my district and in Sioux Falls right now, and that's the announcement with Smithfield. And with Smithfield moving, there's going to be a huge piece of land right there that's going to need a lot of cleaning up. But we are super excited about the economic opportunities for that in that announcement this week. And while that doesn't have a lot to do necessarily with legislation, it sure sets a tone for economic development within Sioux Falls and the surrounding community. And what I'm really excited about is for the state of South Dakota that keeps this project will keep a vital part of our farm economy here in the state of South Dakota, because our hog producers need a place to sell their hogs, and they're so huge, because when our farmers do well, we understand that we all do well in our state. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that for Sioux Falls. I want you to know that the Senate is getting things done. Our longest day went till about 6 the other day. Then we had a super light schedule. All of our bills, some of our committees are done seeing their Senate bills. And so I know that's not true in every committee. Some are double timing it right now, and so is State Affairs in the Senate. But I'm going to let the representatives explain what's going on over in the House.
Yeah, so State Representative Erin Healy, Minority Leader of the House from District 10. So this week, we have been seeing a lot more data bills, both in the House and in the Senate, both in State Affairs, yesterday, I believe. And that's just brought renewed attention to how these projects really impact our communities. So yesterday, I brought House Bill 1301, did not make it out of committee, but at its core, that bill is about pressing a pause button and really ensuring that our communities could gather real information and have really thoughtful conversations about large-scale data center projects before moving those forward. It was never about stopping economic development or halting, the ability for local control. It was about understanding large and long-term impacts to our power grid, our water usage, land, and local taxpayers deserve to be, it's also about our land, but then also local taxpayers really should be informed before decisions are locked in. That short moratorium really would have given us the time to study this issue more. We really want to be transparent about the impacts with the community, with the public, and unfortunately, we won't be able to do that now. Even though this bill didn't advance further into session, the concerns that led up to this bill are very real. A lot of people are still very concerned about data centers, and while we still are willing to learn more and really want projects, economic development projects to move forward, we also want to be really aware of how we're doing that. So we will stay committed to working through policies and advancing policies that balance growth with responsible planning for our communities. One other bill I wanted to mention that will be heard on Friday is my bill, House Bill 1276. It focuses on protecting kids in our juvenile justice system by placing clear limits on the use of solitary confinement. Children in state custody are still children, and we have a responsibility to treat them that way and to give them the support they need for their safety, for their mental health, and for long-term well-being. And this bill really sets some clear standards around when isolation can be used. It requires regular review, and it emphasizes accountability and care over punishment. So like I said, it will be heard on Friday. I'm very hopeful that my colleagues will take a closer look at the research that surrounds this issue. Again, children should never be in solitary confinement. There's a lot of harm that goes along with that. There will be a few stories shared at that committee, and I hope that they can choose to support a policy that puts protection of kids first. And with that, we can move on to Representative Urebalk.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm normally not available at this time, so it's great to be with everyone. So I am from Rapid City, District 32, and can talk about a few bills that have gone through and we're waiting for, and one that hasn't gone through at all. So we have House Bill 1273, which was last week, and that was a mining bill where we were trying to move, there's 2 chapters that regulate mining, and we're trying to move all mining under the one chapter that has more environmental assessments, public comment periods, just more stringent requirements. Unfortunately, that didn't go through, and unfortunately, there were several mining bills that I actually would have been pleased to have gone through, but none of those were able to make it through, and so that is disheartening. But we're hoping to continue the conversation, and definitely in the Black Hills, mining is a really big issue, and so we want to be addressing that. But otherwise, right now in appropriations is, we should be hearing soon, House Bill 1205, which is for an education bill. And it has currently in state law, it's for the funding formula to increase. It's either 3% or inflation, whichever is less. And just by changing, I was working with Representative Mucky on this, of just changing one word to greater than, we can, try to keep up with inflation and costs. Because if we're not keeping up with inflation, it's a cut to education. And so if they don't have the purchasing power, it is a cut. So even at 0%, it's a cut. If it's not inflation, it's a cut. So we really want to be sure that we're funding our teachers, our students, and our future. So we'll be hearing about that later. And then I do also have a Bill 13, HB 131300, that it's a clemency bill. And so for the survivors who have had a history with sex trafficking or domestic abuse, what it would do is it would just provide a little bit of a different pathway of having to, right now, to apply for clemency, you have to put a notice in a newspaper, and their name and information that can just put them in harm's way and in danger. And so what this would do is it would provide a little bit of a different route just for that one tiny requirement. They still have to go through the entire clemency process, but for that one part, they could get some affidavits from other clinicians and other people that can affirm their story and their history. So that will be heard tomorrow in judiciary. And so, yeah, we have a couple, it's a roller coaster. That's my go-to response for what it's like in the legislature. Every moment is some of the highest highs and some of the, low lows, but we keep trucking and keep working it. And I just so appreciate all the people who have been emailing and corresponding with bills. It's just so important. Democracy is a team sport, so we need everyone to stay engaged.
One more comment, I guess, about the Senate, which was kind of interesting for those people out there that it's probably procedural things, but when the Supreme Court came back and said that the lieutenant governor does get to break a tie on things, it's been in our books for a long, long time, hasn't really come up in the state of South Dakota, and it's funny that it happened a couple times here in the Senate. And it was ironic that just the day before on the President Pro Tem's bill that we tied 17-17, and the look on the lieutenant governor's face was quite priceless. I don't know if your cameras were going that direction, but from our vantage point, it was really interesting. And so for those that don't know, there was a 17-17 tie. At which point, generally, the lieutenant governor would have broken that tie, but because of what was going on, he stayed silent, and the smile on his face was interesting. The next day, the Supreme Court ruling came out, so it would have been interesting to see what happened there. But that's been a little interesting piece of just how the sausage gets made, I guess, here in Pierre.
So on data centers, your bill yesterday had data centers covering the cost of decommissioning. I guess, is that a pretty big priority for the Democrats right now to have some sort of language included in that, or is it more so the focus on protections and other things in other areas?
It's more so the focus on protections and ensuring that the costs are covered by the data centers, less about decommissioning and just ensuring that if, you know, a project were to shut down or descale, that they're in charge of it and that they have to cover all the costs associated with that.
Just to the side. The discussion there for you was about local control. Senator Larson rejected a moratorium bill because she wanted more local control, and yours was looking for a pause moratorium. A little bit of difference, but it kind of illustrates some of the discussion. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I believe that was just a one-year moratorium, but ours had some guardrails in place for electricity. And so I think that was a difference there. Also, I would say that a year moratorium, again, I mentioned this, is just pressing the pause button. And it's not completely foregoing local control. It's pressing the pause button because electricity travels across the grid. It travels across county lines, and I think that makes it a state issue.
On data centers, you know, it's safe to say we live in a very polarized political world of blue, red, left, right. But this issue seems to have really kind of united some people on the far left and far right. Why is that observation correct, and why do you think that would be?
You can take it.
You know, we find interesting places where we align, but that the farther right and the farther left, and I wouldn't call it far right or far left necessarily. I'd say
I did.
I know you did. What I'm going to say is that I think there's concerns, and they might be different concerns, right? Of landowner rights might be one, and then our concerns might be more stewardship of the land. Those are very similar, but a little different take on that. And so when we're looking at policy, we want to make sure that we can meet the needs. We can do so in a way that makes sense for all of us, because we only have one Earth here, and we only have one chance to get this right. We want to make sure that we're doing absolutely everything we can to be good stewards of that land and our resources. That being said, if those resources are abundant, if there's the place to do it and the people to do it, and it makes sense, we're not against that. And so we are for progress. We are for the opportunity and the economic development that would come with something. But we just want to make sure that when we do it with the thought that we have to take care of what we already have.
And I think in general, as a caucus, we're welcome to data centers, we're welcome to the idea, and especially understanding that it's going to help certain counties, and it already has helped certain counties with property taxes and funding their school system. I think the difference between us is we're welcome to have that conversation, and we're welcome to allow data centers into South Dakota. Again, we want to do it responsibly, but we're very pro-economic development. And that might be the difference there, is the other bills that we're seeing do put very, very strong guardrails into place. So I think there's a little bit of a difference there. We just overlap a little bit on the Venn diagram.
Governor Roden left $14 million kind of on the bottom line for legislative priorities. Are you guys seeing any appropriations bills that are really jumping out as something that might be taking some of that money?
Well, and I think, you know, that 14 million is a suggestion, right? And again, depending on how things go with the reserves, whether it's 10% or 12% or somewhere in between, that does have a little bit of a different picture and moving around. But yeah, they are in the process of setting those priorities, and I think we definitely have a few of those things on the list. Some things that didn't make it, but yeah, I think there will be more than the 14 million there to play with.
Backtracking a bit to, I think it was just last week, House Bill 1105. This is largely related to when a nursing home closes down in these small rural communities, if a community wants to use that building for a health-related purpose in the future, and stipulations related to that, brought by Representative Overweg in close work with Eric Mucky. I know that made it through the House. The Democrats were split in their response to that bill. It's coming next to Senate Health and Human Services. I wonder if you could just share a bit of, maybe your thoughts on that bill, why that was a difficult vote for you, or something you weren't able to support, and then Senator Smith, if there are questions you have as that makes its way to your committee.
Well, I think I was the only no vote in the House for our caucus, and the reason why is it affects all healthcare facilities. So let's say that you own a physical therapy small clinic, and then you decide to sell that space and move across the street because you need to expand. And now you're being told that you need, if this bill becomes law, now you're being told that you can't include a covenant. So so that it can be sold to another physical therapy clinic right across the street from you. So I do see this as a property rights issue. I do think that this bill didn't solve the problem that we heard of in state affairs. It's a solution that doesn't solve the overall problem of what we're seeing in, I believe, in Corsica.
You know what, we'll look at that and follow up. I know of the bill, we've talked about it, I haven't focused on it yet as it's not come before us.
There's been, including last year, quite a emphasis on verification of people's information, whether it's about for employment or for voting rights or for apps, adult websites. Can you describe just how you're kind of seeing like people's rhetoric as far as this need to verify everything about every detail about everyone?
I think, and this is coming from all Republican legislators, I think all the Republicans are trying to find solutions for problems that don't exist, because we already have all of these different tools in place in order to already do exactly what you're saying, and that's verifying employment, or verifying that you're a voter, or verifying that you're the age that you are. So specifically on the age verification bill that we heard yesterday, it's getting away from us. We're also hearing one today in State Affairs this afternoon. That's just asking for more data to be entered into your phone. And of course, we have a lot of information and personal information in our phone already, but if you're a person who chooses to not have that in your phone, your credit card, your ID, any of that kind of information, then you shouldn't have to do that in order to use your phone. And yesterday specifically, the age verification bill was basically saying that Apple and Google and any company like that will need to ensure age verification, but there already is a way for you to look into your phone, to your child's phone, and set all of the different, what am I trying to say? Like the safeguards in place. I mean, that's what we do for our kids. We already do that, like for my family, we already do that for our kids. It already can be done.
I think there's a larger thing at play, though, too. There's the national politics, and there's the fear that has been stirred in our country and whipped up. And we are trying to solve problems sometimes that don't exist here. We have a very, very long history in the state of South Dakota of fair and legal elections. And I don't know of any instances oftentimes when we bring these bills that they're actually trying to address. They're trying to address an idea, and that's frustrating when we spend so much time doing things like that just to show how patriotic we are or how conservative we are, and then try to get people on the record to vote a certain way so you can send postcards and all of those different types of things that go on here. that's frustrating for us because we're here to help people in the state of South Dakota and solve real South Dakota problems.
I guess, piggybacking off that, South Dakota is obviously a state that prides itself in freedom. I guess, can you speak to your caucus's perspective of these bills? Like, are they an infringement on freedom? How do you view that or sort of tackle the issues as they come? Because there's a lot in different areas, but they're all around freedom, I guess.
I would say when it comes to the age verification bills, yeah, it's an infringement on, it is an infringement on freedom. Like, and we talk about parental control, and then like we think that parents are free to make these choices, and we hear that in the legislature, but then we see bills like this, and we've seen it in the past too, where we bring bills and we tell parents how to parent. We're a huge nanny state. We really want to ensure that parents are acting a certain way, and it usually is a morality issue for our Republican colleagues. They think that they need to take their morals and apply that to all the parents across the state of South Dakota, and that's not free, and that's not freedom. You can't say that you're the party of freedom if you're going to do things like that. And again, with businesses, so like we want to take this and apply it to the E-Verify bill, the program. You're not allowing businesses to be free. They're already utilizing the I-9 forms. That is a way that you can ensure that an employee is in fact able to be employed. So I don't know why we are telling businesses now that they must use this clunky program that is really inefficient in order to employ their employees. That's not freedom.
Question for, on your 3% or greater bill, what would that do for property taxes?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Yeah, the more the state can fund our share of education, then the less of a burden it is on the local level, and so therefore can be property tax relief for sure. We also have, with our Feed Families, Fund Schools tax plan, there's a school construction fund aspect of that. And so ensuring that if schools could have a 0% loan to build classrooms, that could decrease or maybe even help schools not have to opt out as much. And so also because opt-outs do increase property taxes. So if we could decrease that, then that can also provide property tax relief. So it's being heard currently right now. So very excited to hear how that goes. But if it doesn't go through, we still have the school construction fund as a bill in and of itself that could, if there's any of the leftover 14 million, we could be putting some funds in there. So yeah, again, if we can, if the state can fund more of our fair share, then it helps with property taxes. It's one of the best ways to go about it.
To follow up on that point about construction, we've had millions of dollars sitting in another fund for housing infrastructure for loans. And there's been, not much there's been some interest in it, but it hasn't been used up. Would it be better to convert that over to a school financing program?
I think and I don't know if the bill has come yet or how it went, but they are looking to tweak that program a little bit so that it would be more beneficial for developers to access that fund. So hopefully that will go through. I think housing is such a huge issue as well. And we need housing for our families to go to the schools. And so I think we can do some tweaks within that program and keep that money there. And so I think it's an and issue. But.
I guess for our Sioux Falls lawmakers, just since it's it's current events, there's going to be a chunk of state money going to, could potentially go to the new, why am I blanking, the meat processing, Smithfield. And so, you know, I just want to know if y'all had any thoughts or if it just seems kind of standard based off what is needed from Smithfield.
You know, I think this is a game-changing opportunity here for the state, and that's why I addressed it right away in the press conference, that we know how critical Smithfield and things like Smithfield are to the state of South Dakota when it comes to our ag economy, for our producers to be able to have a place to take their hogs. That's fabulous. We also know that the land that sits on, and the fact that that building is over 100 years old, and I think there are over 150 buildings that have been cobbled together over the century to make Smithfield, you know, be able to continue their current mission. For years, I've thought to myself, what if we could just, you know, we got rid of the stockyards in my lifetime, and this is District 15 and right next to her District 10, okay? We're right in there. But for my whole lifetime, the stockyards were down there, were Morels and the prison. Well, the stockyards is gone. The prison, now we've moved off the top of the hill, and now with that land being available for development in the prime area, over, I think it's about 120 acres if I'm correct, 120 acres of opportunity in Sioux Falls. I want people in the state of South Dakota to think what that's going to do for the whole state when it comes to economic development. Because when Sioux Falls does well on sales tax, we fund so much more in the entire state. And so the opportunities are absolutely, the sky's the limit, I think, for the whole state of South Dakota.
And I think what's really exciting is that area is just right downtown Sioux Falls. So we know that our downtown thrives, especially with small businesses. So I'm hopeful that there will be an area of that new district that will be dedicated to local South Dakotans. I also want to say, with the expansion of Smithfield and moving it out, that's really good for our future of what does it look like for South Dakota when it comes to either pork production or any other kind of food manufacturing. I think there are a lot of really amazing potential opportunities for our state and for Sioux Falls. And I also want to add that I think it's really great that we're getting a new building for the people who work there. Smithfield employs so many immigrants and a lot of workers, and I think it's really important that they have, and I'm not saying that they don't, but that they're going to continue to have a good and safe place to work, like when it comes to a new building and ensuring that things are set up for success. So.
And this also aligns with some other things that we've already done in this legislature when it comes to bills that we've approved, when it comes to what's going on at SDSU, for example, too, with the swine production in barns. We've voted to pass those things along when it comes to what we're working on here within our land-grant university, and the things that they're doing up there will just go together with this new development opportunity.
I guess since you're on the topic of economic development, that's obviously been under the microscope lately in the public eye, I guess. How do you, as a caucus and as a legislature, give the public trust that what's being done here on economic development is going to be beneficial for the state and for the people? I think we've seen some opposition in multiple committees and stuff on different bills for it. I guess, how do you instill that trust in the public and to your constituents?
I was not for, and I believe the bill has died, but the 50 years of no sales tax, for example, for data centers. That's picking one industry and giving them carte blanche for a long time. When I've talked to economic development professionals in our state, I said, how many industries would like to have something like that? All of them, correct? We can't do that. But when we can have individual things that we need to do to help move things forward for our state to grow, for opportunities to develop, and look at that in a long-range plan and see how it all fits together in a cohesive plan, I think there are definitely opportunities that we need to invest in order to see the the fruits of that investment come down the road. And so in the beginning, people may be receiving a tax, let's say a TIF, for example. Up front, they're getting financing because of that TIF, but without that project, that wouldn't be doing anything anyway. And eventually, when you look at the income that's made off of that, or taxes, that's not income, but when you watch the graph on that, eventually it shoots straight up when those taxes, come into there. And so we have to look at each one of those projects individually, I believe, and what they do for our communities and for the state of South Dakota. I can tell you that the growth that will happen because of this current decision in Sioux Falls will benefit the entire state of South Dakota. And I don't think we can even understand it right now.
If I can just add to that, we have to represent the west side, West River a little bit. And so, along with that, we are looking at a bill to allow the excise tax from the expansion of the base, the military base, to stay local and to be able to help rebuild the roads after such massive construction and expansion and whatnot. And so that also has been huge for our state, huge for our national security and all those things. And so, also I think per that, looking at each project individually, I think that's also an important one to point out in hoping to invest in those things that are also bringing a ton of economic development to our state. The base is a huge economic driver for the Rapid City and surrounding area.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Good morning. I'm Carl Perry. I'm the Assistant Majority Leader. We just got a few things to cover. You're probably wondering how many drafts we've had in so far, 1,672. How many House bills, 325. How many Senate bills, 245. Then we have an additional 31 commemorations and House resolutions that go to the House and another 28 that go to the Senate. So altogether, we have about 629 items that we've been working on. So we've been busy. You're probably going to ask us a few questions today. All the tough questions go that way. All the easy questions come this way. But cell phone ban, data centers, our property taxes, the SNAP program, the Supreme Court opinion, Smithville, Convention of States, So there's nothing to talk about, but we're ready to talk, okay? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marty Overweight, Representative District 21. Hard to follow that, Mr. Assistant Leader, but, yeah, overall look on the House side, I think we're doing really good. Ag Committee finished up this morning. We are done with our House bills and we're moving on to Senate bills. We're gonna have an extra meeting for State Affairs this afternoon, and then tomorrow morning and Monday morning, and we're gonna be done in good time. So a lot of bills, but we did our job and we moved them through, and now we just got to get them off the floor and taken care of. But pretty happy with how the whole system's working.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I would just kind of echo what Marty said as well, that we're moving a lot of bills through. Committees are being very busy. I just left Judiciary. I'll go into Commerce when we're done here. And we have, I believe, 5 bills to deal with there. And we're working on, with the House, on trying to get our budget together to create a roadmap for priorities that we can all agree on. And we'll be working with Second Floor to get the G bill together, and things are really starting to happen fast. There's not a lot of days left to get it done. I'm a little concerned of after crossover day. That's all we talk about till crossover day, but once you get there, I suspect I'm gonna have a lot of House bills and State Affairs that I'll have to get through, so I wouldn't be surprised if I was holding extra meetings after crossover day. But anyway, we'll keep working hard, and looking forward to hearing what you're interested in.
Speaking of Senate Commerce, Mr. Mohoff, you have a bill coming up about the transfers of money to help support the infrastructure of airports. Any early thoughts you could share on that?
Well, I believe that's the first bill up in Commerce today, and I would say that there's a diversity of opinion within my caucus on that one. I could tell you how I feel about it. I'll likely support the bill. I don't know if it'll get legs and make it out of committee. We'll find out.
I'll ask the same question I asked your Democratic colleagues, but on the issue of data centers, it's been an issue that seems to have really united, in my view, sort of elements of the far left and the far right, like an issue that doesn't normally do that. Is my observation correct, and why would that be, do you think?
We can start. Well, I don't know if that's a correct characterization or not. I mean, Representative Healy's bill for the moratorium, as you know, died in State Affairs yesterday. Senator Carr and Representative Hansen have a bill that's over in the Senate now, Data Center Bill of Rights, to basically, say we're not necessarily going to offer a bunch of extra incentives, and we're going to standardize the types of regulations we would like to see on them. And so there's many people, I don't know whether you characterize it far left or right, who say we have a 4.2% sales tax rate. We have no corporate income tax, no personal income tax, lots of clean air and water, and excellent workforce. Those are great incentives right there on their own with what we have right now in South Dakota. So that's part of the debate, is whether or not we need to do extra things.
Well, by way of a follow, I would say that some of the people who testified against the bills yesterday, South Dakotans for Liberty, in Sioux Falls, you had organizers to try to get it on the ballot. I would say that we're from the progressive left. So at least maybe not in this body, but within writ large, it's unified the left and right.
Yeah, and I think maybe some issues do transcend that. I mean, you could call it a populist movement, call it whatever you want. And I know people may disagree. There's some who say there's misinformation out there about what the costs would be and what it means. But, however you want to characterize it, this issue has been a big one in the mind of the public. And so far, at least what I'm hearing and what most folks I talk to out here are hearing, is that to the extent the public's reaching out to us, it isn't to ask for more incentives for these. So that's just what we're hearing in the House, if I had to balance what we're hearing on that issue.
data center bills. So if you look at the House and you look at the Senate, can you nutshell what has a chance of making it through? I mean, what would you describe that has a chance?
Yeah, we had Data Center Day in Senate State Affairs yesterday. I don't know if you follow it. And we sent a number of bills to the 41st day. Two bills survived. One dealt with the reinvestment program over at GOED. I would say that was more of a compromise bill to allow developers to get into to make a contract with GOED and give them more certainty, a longer term contract. So before they come and invest $10 billion, they know what the playing field is going to look like. We also passed Senate Bill 135, which is a bill that Pro Tem Carr and Speaker Hansen are working on, which I think they call it the Data Center Bill of Rights. And that's scheduled, that's on today's calendar. So I hope in working with those that we can find a pathway forward, because we have a situation, obviously farming is very important to our country and to our state, and we give farms a lot of exemptions on their sales tax. And we do it for a good reason, because they would not be competitive if we didn't. Well, it's the same thing with data centers. All the other states are offering, the surrounding states are offering incentives to get them to build there. And I'd like to see a place where we could level the playing field, because our small communities need something. When I was growing up, our town was hopping on Saturday nights because the farm community supported the community of Eureka, where Scott and I grew up. That's not the case anymore. We don't have 4 implement dealers. We don't have 3 grocery stores. We don't have 4 car dealers anymore. We have roughly between 700 and 800 people, and you can't bring a business there that requires a large workforce. Data centers are the answer to a lot of these communities to bring value, to spread the property tax base, and to provide additional dollars to help keep the schools vibrant in those smaller communities. And I think we need to keep working on a path forward so that can happen for the communities that want it and that it will work for them.
I'd have to probably agree with a lot of what Leader Melhoff said, coming from a very small community. But, you know, I know there's a lot of disappointed people on both sides and want to make this an issue, but I look at it like this. I think this is very good government. We are doing work here related to data centers. We're looking at guardrail bills. We're looking at all the bills. Yes, some of them get defeated and some of them are going to go through. But before we jump both feet into the business of data centers, I think it's great government that we set it up before they come and do it. I'm not against data centers at all. I'm getting educated, but the state needs to do its work. We have rules and laws for every industry, and this is no different. So I like what we're doing. I really do.
The bill that we've been talking about, the GOED bill, that's SB 329. And once in a while, you guys wanted to know what the bill number is, so I thought I'd share that with you.
So the data center conversation is obviously in this larger economic development conversation. And I think there has been a lot of mistrust, and it's sort of evidenced by some of the public in committees over economic development. I guess, without getting to the weeds, how do you, as a Republican caucus, instill trust in the people that what you're going to put forth this session is going to benefit them on that front?
Well, okay, yeah, I think I can answer part of that question. Well, the process is not closed, what we do here. I mean, you can sit in your living room and not only listen, but watch now. And, you know, it's not a hidden process. We go through every process the same. Are there going to be some citizens disappointed in what we do? Yeah, and some happy? Yeah. But the take-home message is they can be as involved as they want. in testifying, in calling, in emailing. Trust me, we get a lot of emails, and I take them serious, I really do. So I think if they're disappointed, I guess every 2 years they get a chance to say, you know, hey, you disappointed me and you're not going back. But the process is open.
The main thing we always have to remember is that we're here to speak for our caucus. We're also here to speak for our constituents, and we're here to do the best thing that we can for the great state of South Dakota. And those are things that are very important, but we also always have to remember to acknowledge the other side. There are two sides on every issue, and then every now and then somebody will remind me there are more than two sides on a coin. There's also the outside. So we need to look at things very carefully, and Mr. Dirks, that was a great question. Thank you.
Senator Melhoff, you kind of mentioned that you're in the beginning stages of figuring out what those legislative priorities might be for the budget. Is there anything that's really grabbing your guys' attention or kind of taking shape right now?
Well, a big conversation every year is funding to the big three, which as when we started out, we had nothing. Now it looks, the governor is recommending 1%, possibly due to some rosier, more optimistic outlooks in the revenue estimates. And the chambers are also looking at it. I think there's a appetite, certainly in the Senate caucus, to do more than 1%. What that will be, I'm not sure. There's another, we listed all the priorities and we looked at them. So rural infrastructure is something that's a priority that a lot of people share. Getting the methodology up for rural medical, I forget exactly what they call the thing, is part of it. And hopefully we can find some ongoing money for some of those things. But again, it's things that we have to work through in our caucuses, then we have to work through with the House caucus and come up with a roadmap forward, and then we have to get with the governor and do something that we can all agree on, and hopefully we'll come away with a good G-bill this year that benefits South Dakota the most.
I'll just add to that, this is my 7th year, and I don't know if I've ever seen the two chambers working so well together when it comes to the budget. I mean, it's really been a good process.
And I just give a shout out to Chair Derby and Chair Otten. They do a great job, and their vice chairs are also very, very professional and provide a lot of good information to our caucuses.
None of you are from Sioux Falls, but there was a major announcement there this past week about Smithfield, and I just wondered if I could get your views on that development and what it could mean for South Dakota.
I'll give you a quick recap. At $1.3 billion for a pork processing plant in Sioux Falls, that's got to be good. When you spend $1.3 billion, I don't care what you're doing, it's got to be positive. And they're going to replace a 100-year-old building, and they're going to create 3,000 new jobs. So what don't you like about 3,000 new jobs? What don't you like about replacing a really old building? And what don't you like about $1.3 billion into the economy? I think the people in Sioux Falls should be doing hand flips. The people in South Dakota also are very pleased because it helps us all. Thank you.
I just know a good friend of mine, Jim Wilcox, who worked for NSP, commented that 1994 South Dakota really made a pretty big sacrifice to save John Morrell at the time with the loss of Governor Mickelson and others that day. And to see that kind of investment in the successor of that company in Sioux Falls, I mean, they will likely be there for 100 years. They're making a big time commitment to the state of South Dakota, and I think that's great. Although they are going to use a lot of water, but I'm sure they have good plans for that.
I think to the extent from the bit I've seen so far, and I haven't delved deeply into the details, but it looks like a win-win from the extent of it'll be a big improvement to downtown Sioux Falls for that area to be redeveloped. And it'll be a big improvement for our hog producers, ag producers to have that facility right there to bring those products right to market. So from that standpoint, it's great. As the leader mentioned, we do have to always keep an eye on the water usage and all these things and what we're doing with our wonderful aquifers and our surface water.
It's, being from the ag world, it's a good thing. I mean, to kill 20,000 hogs there a day in Sioux Falls, you know, that reflects back to our corn. It also, with the new bean crush plant in Mitchell, I mean, it fits because hogs eat a lot of soybean meal and a lot of corn. And, you know, so it's a good connect, I think. Pretty exciting for Sioux Falls, I guess, after that's all cleaned out down there. I'm old enough in here to remember when John Morrell used to go on strike and what a big thing and how it affected Sioux Falls when I was a boy. But boy, for a city like Sioux Falls to have that whole thing to develop over the next 30, 40 years, it's gonna be something to see, I think. I just hope they don't come to the legislature for all their money, but we'll that'll have discussions. But no, it's pretty exciting, I think.
Bringing it back to data centers for a minute. Yesterday, there was a lot of discussion about leaving safeguards up to local control, but there was also some concern about how counties without zoning are going to be able to do that. So I was wondering if you can speak to if the state has a role or some strategies that could be at play to help those counties protect themselves in terms of the data center industry.
Yeah, I think I spoke before. I didn't support Senator Howard's bill for a 1-year moratorium, and I wouldn't support the other one. I just don't think it's a good look. The counties do have the ability to impose a moratorium if they want to, if they need to. And with respect to counties that don't have zoning regulations, well, that's a local decision too. When they decide not to put those types of ordinances in place, that's a decision that they made. And the folks who vote for those county commissioners, I would assume they support it or they wouldn't vote them in. And if they want a little bit more regulation and ordinance with respect to that, maybe they'll vote different commissioners in next time around.
And I think that's a good question. You know, Representative Jorgensen had a bill to have the state play a greater role in regulating mining to the extent of when they're using blasting, which is the larger operations that failed in the House this week. And a lot of people cited local control and the fact that Meade County has chosen thus far not to have zoning. And I think a lot of these issues, whether it's the data centers or out in western South Dakota, more so the mining, if it'll have good effects to the extent that I think more people wake up and decide to get involved in county commission races and pay attention to what they're doing and just really understand how it works. And if they don't have zoning, what that could mean in the future. Because once you have these things that do come in under an existing regime of regulation, it's hard to go back and unwind that. You have property rights issues. So if you're going to take control of these issues, you need to get active today and be prospective in your thinking at a county level.
When you listen to the debate and discussion, proponent and supporters of various data center bills in committee, there's a lot of state officials, government officials, not elected officials, who are basically supporters of data centers and their growth and basically opponents to anything that would add more controls. If it appears that some bills could, if they do pass, they could be headed for a possible governor's veto. Anything have a chance of getting a 2/3 majority to override that, or the possibility of a veto?
What bill are you referring to?
Probably the last 10 or 12 that I've listened to.
So you're,
whether it's moratoriums got thrown.
so just with respect to the 2/3, you mean to override a veto?
Yeah,
Okay.
the data centers that have continued.
Yeah, I mean, it's the governor's prerogative to veto any bill that he wants. And if there's not support to override the veto, the bill is lost. With respect to the other things and some of the bills out there, I think we need to pay more attention to the regulatory landscape that we currently have in place. I've seen a lot of bills that are kind of stepping into the lane of the Public Utilities Commission. They have a role in making sure that rates reflect the cost of service. And when you have a large load customer come on board, they have processes in place to make sure that those large load customers are paying for the infrastructure that's necessary to bring service to them. And as you know, I used to work at the PUC, and I've seen it for years, oftentimes before. And it's not just a data center, even the soybean plant over in St. Lawrence. They had to, Northwest Energy served them, they had to put up a lot of infrastructure to get power to that place. And the developers who built it had to put an irrevocable letter of credit in place to make sure that Northwest was able to recover the cost of those investments from those builders and not from the rank and file ratepayers. And at the end of the day, if I remember correctly, that company went bankrupt the day that Northwest presented their irrevocable letter of credit. And those processes are in place, and the legislature, I think, sometimes gets a little overzealous in trying to shoulder their way into other agencies' lanes and try to take the wheel where it's not always appropriate.